Okay, sorry we're getting started a little bit late. Okay. We had a previous get-together.
Everybody but you.
Yeah, where were you? Read your email?
I'm feeling much better.
Did you read your email? Okay, good afternoon. The Economic Development Committee meeting of April 6, 2017. Please come to order. Presentation by the Community Development Block Grant awardee.
Yes. This is actually a SIP awardee that was a misprint on our part, and we apologize. Okay. Amy Bokodaro is representing the Easton Main Street Initiative. She's the Assistant Manager and Marketing Director. Okay. And they have been recipients of our Community Investment Partnership Program grant. And Amy, if you'd like to come up and present.
Afternoon, everyone. So like Tim said, I'm Amy Bokodaro. I'm with the Easton Main Street Initiative. I've been employed there for a little over 4 years, and prior to that I was a volunteer for over 6 years with them. So a lot of the things you'll get to see today are projects that I've seen come to fruition through either volunteering or as an employee there. First, Easton Main Street Initiative is a program of the Greater Easton Development Partnership. That is a 501c3 program. The umbrella also encompasses the Easton Farmers Market, the Easton Public Market, the Easton Ambassadors, and our beloved Bacon Fest as well. Easton Main Street's focus is the downtown, which is defined as the area from 6th Street to the Free Bridge and from Route 22 out to Washington Street. It's about 20 square blocks. So main streets are across the United States. They are aimed at reviving downtowns, and they're facilitated through the National Main Street Center. They were first part of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, which is where we have our attachment to reuse projects and restoring properties and facades. I'd like to mention that preservation is adaptive reuse, and adaptive reuse is preservation. And it's not just about keeping old buildings around. It's about making sure that they're viable, that they are active and in use and relevant to the community that they are in. So our design committee, which is one of 4 volunteer committees, works with the Facade program, for which we were a recipient of the SIP funds for last year. This is a program we've had going for 10 years, and you might ask, are facades effective? Is that really something that is important to downtowns? And the National Trust for Historic Preservation comments on the following. They say commercial building improvements resulted in an increase in sales in the year after improvements were made. Sales improvements were sustained for several years thereafter, and those sales exceeded increases in local taxes as well. Improvements attracted new businesses and shoppers to target areas. Participants were often motivated to make additional improvements, which you'll see later, such as interior space or product lines. And owners and tenants of properties and businesses in surrounding areas also are motivated to make improvements in their properties. So you'll see that this is not just about improving a property, it's about improving the community around it. And you'll see later on, this is a project from about 4 years ago, what is also spurred right there a couple doors down from it. So I'll take you on a little trip back in time. So we've had 10 years of facade grant programs, and these are some of the best of the best. I don't know if you remember some of these properties prior, but these are some of the things that we've done over the years. The last one was Northampton Street, along with these 2 here. And this was back when we could pick a target block because pretty much everything was in need at that time. And people were hungry for facade improvements. And they've definitely made a difference here. This is one very recently. This was 2 doors down from Rivals, that previous picture you just saw. And this is now Stoke Coal Fire Pizza. Brand new facade. They actually moved the door and the windows there, kind of switched them around. So we were able to facilitate that. And in the past, these dollars were coming through Keystone Community Grant dollars. We were awarded $50,000 at a time, but it's a very competitive field. Because we are a Main Street program, accredited Main Street program, and also a Keystone Community, we're supposed to be at the top of that pot there, but of course there's a lot of other people there as well. And even though we are there, the city is also vying for dollars. And I guess you could say it's a good problem to have. We have a lot of projects. We have a lot of opportunities here, but we do have to prioritize them, unfortunately. And so we were so grateful that you guys came through with SIP funds, and we were able to continue this project, because without that, we would have gone another year without facade dollars. So in the dollar world, we look at public investment, reinvestment over the last 10 years, and what has been added to that privately. And what you're not seeing in that reinvestment total there is also what it spurred. This is a great example. This is a building that was office spaces. It was turned into 4 apartments thereafter. So that facade grant was just a piece of that total project. So just last year in 2016, with those SIP funds, $50,000, another $83,000 plus dollars were reinvested into downtown Easton. And there's still 2 projects that are outstanding still, so we don't have a full final dollar amount on those. This is one of them. This is a painting project for that building. Like I mentioned, our design committee facilitates our facade grant program, and they are all volunteers. So they have about 40 hours put into this program. They monetize this as about $23 and some change per volunteer hour. So you can see it's about another $1,000 worth of donated time here. The 3 pictures on the slide there are also from the project. Painting on the building on the left, which those apartments are being upgraded. The middle project has the building on the left side of that middle photo, new windows, and the first floor storefront on the building on the right is new. And then another painting project on the right-hand side as well. And those were new apartments about 5 or 6 years ago, too.
Question?
Sure.
I'm pretty impressed with your volunteers. Are they at design committee? Are they architects?
No, they're people. Well, we have a member from the historic district on that. We have a woman who is a preservationist on our committee. Mike Brett sits as a chairperson on the committee. Folks who are just interested, want to partake in this. We do a couple other other projects. We do plantings. We do artistic bike racks. We do murals throughout downtown. So this is one component to that design committee.
And that committee doesn't come up with the design, do they?
No, they don't. These are presented to us from the property owner. We do allow for a $500 fee for design consulting, but they do have to have architectural designs when they go to the historic district as well.
That volunteer committee approves those. That's
Correct.
Yeah, I thought, holy mackerel, they got more talent than I got. It's not hard to do. Thank you.
You're welcome. So this is probably my favorite success out of this SIP grant this year. This is Jack and Jill Studio. It's a photography studio that's been around since 1947. The current business owner has been with the business since 1972. He bought the building in 1986. He lives in the back. He has a lovely carriage house back there that he and his wife live in. He has long-term tenants above the business as well. So at some point they put that lovely 60s facade on that front of that building, and you can see what that building used to look like. So this was something that was talked about, and we kept trying to get him to take it off. But without those extra dollars, he probably would have let this go and just waited until he was ready to sell the building, because it just seemed it is a monumental task to undertake. So this is still in progress right now, but the front has come off. Pretty much all of the stonework there is still intact. It needs to be painted. There's some wood trim that needs to be added to it. There is some masonry work that needs to be done, and the building needs to be painted yet. But overall, this is going to be a spectacular project, and it should be done very soon, as soon as the weather clears.
Are they painting the masonry?
No,
I would hope not.
No, they'll be painting the wood pieces and the balcony that's under that second-story window. Also, the window pieces as well, window treatments around there too. Oh, I guess I should also mention, because of that, with photography the way it is, he's not using his studio the way we used to use photography studios. So a lot of that has moved to digital work, computer work, on-site work. So because of that, he's going to be able to reactivate that commercial space, which is sandwiched between two other commercial locations already. So it's a really great piece to that puzzle there. So overall, we were able to fund 6 projects. The project that is there on the right is still pending as well. That's 1-6 Flats right in Center Square. They're coming to completion on those apartments, and they'll be adding awnings there to the doorway and above the windows that will help fund. We did have 12 applicants for this as well, so obviously we turned down projects. So right now we have 17 projects in the queue, and this is based on people who are just reaching out to us. It's unsolicited, it's just they want to do work on their building, and like I said, a lot of them have other pieces, other components to them besides a facade. So we calculate those dollars at least $380,000 in reinvestment that would happen, and obviously that's a guesstimate there. So it's great to have dollars on hand and be ready, because when we have projects like this one where people come and ask, I want to do this project, I want to make this happen on my property, and if we don't have dollars that we can help support them with, it either doesn't happen, like for instance this one that was started and just didn't go anywhere and has been a slow process. And we wind up with a piece like this that starts to affect our walkability in downtown, because people see it and they think that there is nothing beyond it. It becomes a hole in our streetscape. So the opportunity is to look like this, to look like the Easton that a lot of us know and see every day. And that's what we're working towards. That's really our goal for downtown, and in maintaining these buildings, not just in full rehabs, but also allowing property owners to continue to keep up with these properties. It really is a great investment in the community. So thank you very much for your support on these. They were well spent, and we are happy to continue with our Facade Grant program. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Mm-hmm.
Complete the building. What's to, and I'm sure you have something in place, but what's preventing that owner from flipping that building once the facade is up and it's improved?
Mm-hmm. Nothing.
Oh, nothing. Okay.
Nothing, but like I mentioned before, I think it's really an investment in the community, because that building is not going away. It's staying part of that streetscape, and it allows the next person to come in and continue to build on that building and continue to keep that property going.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
If I could, I just want to thank Amy for the presentation. Did you ever do a presentation before for the council here?
No, I have not.
I appreciate you coming and doing this, because when the SIP grants are awarded, a lot of times we'd like to follow up on and see what's happening. And I guess the next question would be, once you have these programs started, who oversees finishing touches and following up so that everything gets done? Do you have someone that follows the project through? Is that you?
It's either myself or Kim Komatsu, who's the manager of the.
Kim gets it.
Yes, either one of us keep on top of property owners and making sure receipts are turned in and reimbursement is taken care of, and so on and so forth. Yeah, we are a staff of 2. So.
Oh, really? I didn't know. I
Yes,
thought you had
that's-
more than that.
No, that's it. It's just us at the Main Street office. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Tim, you backstop that, right, yeah. And then Tim also backstops
Don't give him
the,
credit there.
you know what I mean, just to make sure that things are done.
Sure, yes. It
Yeah.
goes through checks and balances here. Absolutely.
No other questions? Thank you very much.
Sharon has a question.
Did you have
Oh, I'm
something?
sorry.
Yes, I can leave you one. Yes, I'll send you a link for it. Actually, that's probably the easiest way to do that. Okay.
One last thing. What software is that presentation in?
It's called Prezi, Prezi.
And it's really cool.
Thank
Nice job. You did a nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We only bring you the best.
He says humbly.
Yeah, you just pull that out. We also had another presentation. She's delayed, so if you don't mind, I'll continue down the process here. We'll give you some updates. The CDBG program is open now and open until the 28th of the month. Our SIP program opens May 15th, and the hotel tax program opens 4/17, and that'll go through the end of May. I wanted to point out that 2 of our hotel tax recipients have returned the funds. Well, actually, they've just not accepted the funds. The DNL National Heritage Corridor and the National Museum of Industrial History, both of them asked for substantial funds, were given an award of a portion of the funds, and they weren't sufficient to be able to do the projects in one case, and in the other case they couldn't raise additional funding, and so they've declined the funds. It's $15,000 for the Museum of Industrial History and $5,000 for the DNL. Those will be returned to the future grants area. Actually, that's where we keep them anyway, so we haven't encumbered them yet. But we have letters from them expressing gratitude to the council for approving the awards, but just indicating that it's just not sufficient for them to do the projects that they had intended to. This is something we run into because we don't have all the money in the world to fund all the projects that come through, which are very worthwhile. Policies and Procedures Manual, we're working on that. We have the Code of Federal Regulations requires us to have one departmentally, and we are working on one. We expect to have a manual largely completed by midsummer. It's actually moving a little faster than I had expected. We're also, we've given the county executive our departmental action plan, and he's working with us to refine that before we bring it before you to make sure that it accurately reflects the measurement methodologies that will help you know that we're doing a good job for you and to clear what we're actually doing. And toward that end, I wanted to mention that to support council and provide the same transparency, due diligence, and oversight that we have for our DCED managed grants, we provided award agreements on your behalf to Stevens Place and the County Historical and Genealogical Society for the Northampton County Book. Mechanism does not exist for council to do this, and since we are the assigned grants organization within the county, we've offered to do this and have provided these agreements. They sign the agreements, they send them back to us. We monitor the grants and make sure the money's used what it's intended to be used for by council and what the organizations say they're going to use it for, and then we get a final report, all of which will be presented to you upon receipt. Affordable housing, housing rehab, and emergency housing services program guidelines are currently in draft form. We're kind of combining a number of those programs because they seem to go better well together, and we should have that for you very soon. This is specifically for residents of Northampton County whose annual incomes are below 80% of the household median for the county. Hotel tax, 2005. That's also a program that we're completing. It's a redesign of what was done for ArtsQuest and for PBS 39. Those funds are going to be put into a new program. I can tell you it aims to support economic development and activities of interest to and for the benefit of the county as per the legislation. And we're going to do that through multi-year grants serving marketing and capital purposes that meet those criteria of the legislation. We'll have that for you by the next month. Economic development activities, our Green Knights Industrial Park 2. When we complete this project, it's a brownfield redevelopment, as you know. We're looking to provide up to 300 jobs in manufacturing and related businesses. They are currently addressing environmental concerns on the site. The Knights were rejected for a Monroe County LSA grant of $400,000. We found out through our legislative contacts that most of those funds had already been committed, so we really weren't expecting to get that grant awarded. We do have a $3.8 million building in our sites BIOS request to the Commonwealth Financing Authority. Last Wednesday, I was out there with LVEDC. They tabled ours, and I believe one from Lackawanna. So the next May 25th meeting, they will reconsider that, and we don't see any avenues that don't end up in us getting funded for that. So that would be great for the Green Knights. We also provided with them, Mark provided a schedule for engineering and permitting that meets our EPA grant. As you know, we have an EPA grant of $650,000 for that particular project. We do have time limitations on that, and to be sure that we're in compliance, we've provided a new schedule and gone over it with the engineers and some of the township folks and the borough folks up there to make sure that everybody's on board. So we do get the work done that needs to be done so the grant criteria are met. Sir?
Just very quickly, what is the time limitation on that? Do you know?
Mark, what's our exposure on that? It's,
the current cooperation agreement with EPA is scheduled to expire in September 30th this year.
Okay.
Business concierge services. We've worked with probably a dozen companies since the beginning of the year. Dave and I actually met with two and contacted two more just last Friday that are interested in moving into Northampton County. And in the case of these four, they were all four interested in moving into Easton, which is very interesting. So we did coordinate with Kim Kometz, and we did send additional locations beside the one location that they were looking at to give them an opportunity to look around. We've also encouraged companies when we talk to them about looking at other places besides just the two cities. There are other population centers, for instance, in the Nazareth area that may be appropriate depending on the size of the company and the kind of production that they do. So we've been very active with that. There have been a number of loans through the General Purpose Authority that have been processed, and those companies we've dealt with are very happy with the process, and they're moving along. GPA has been very busy in the last couple of months. Lafayette College has a bond issue. The issuance of a new bond transaction is estimated to be about $150 million, and we have the necessary meetings and social responsibility activities for that coming up in May. The closing's projected for the end of May or the beginning of June. This is something our office handles.
And just a heads up, the health, safety, and welfare resolution that council we're expecting that at your May meeting.
Thanks, Mark. Someone had asked about the Schrin TIF. I want to just point out that the council has requested an audit of that. And so what I can tell you at this point is that the preliminary information that I received is that since 2012, we've received just over $204,000 on the sales of 5 lots. And I'm going to stop there with that information because it will make more sense with the audit, and so I'll let them present that to you and provide that. But I wanted to be responsive to your inquiry. And as you know, Majestic has sold itself, and the Fanatics, which is the company which bought it, has decided to keep 600 jobs in Plainfield Township here in the county. And so I know Ms. Ferraro is going to send a letter.
Palmer.
It's
Or
Palmer
Township, I'm
Township.
sorry.
Palmer.
And Ms. Ferraro is going to send a letter,
I
and
did,
DCED
yeah.
and the
Right.
county executive have already sent letters thanking them for for believing in the skills and the community-minded workers of our area. So it's a
very
really good.
thankful.
We're very happy to see that. We are. I have worked with Don Cunningham to contact the governor's office because we didn't get a direct invitation to that, and we heard about it secondarily. So we're going to see if we can't fix that part. I want to take a moment and introduce Sarah Ortiz. Now, I don't know if I've done this before, but Sarah is our executive secretary, and she came on. When did you start? February 6th. So we're delighted to have her, and she finishes our complement of the office, and she's been fixing our web stuff, and we lost a lot of things when the new website came up, and she's been replacing it and finding new ways to do it, and also keeping the rest of us in line, which is really helpful. Thank you, Sarah. Someone had asked about the Bethlehem skate park, and I had a chance to talk with Darlene Heller in Bethlehem. She said that the Phase 1 and Phase 2 of those are completed. The only thing they have is some greenery to put on, and they don't foresee anything in the immediate future more in that project. So for whomever wanted information about that, that's the up-to-date on that one. I may have mentioned that Karen in our office is working with Maria in farmland preservation. She met a couple times with her, and we're helping to provide some reporting modules and some methodologies. So Maria, who has a huge job and lots of moving parts there, can consolidate that all and do a better reporting job. And so I'd like to say that we're progressing with that nicely, and you may even see a report come to council. Council authorized $150,000 for the multi-municipal comprehensive planning for the Nazareth area and the Slate Belt. I've met with both of them repeatedly, and the Slate Belt is moving ahead. They have 10 municipalities that are participating. The figure we came up with was $6,250 per municipality, which means they'll have $62,500 of that $150 allocated for the plan, working with Lehigh Valley Planning Commission. The Nazareth area has 8 entities working, and so that'll be $50,000. We had also requested up to $150,000, so we had a buffer in case some of the external funding doesn't come through and the municipalities need a little help to finish the progress. Nazareth is actually a redo of their plan, and so they're a little further ahead than the Slate Belt is, but they're all very excited and moving forward, and it's so nice to see that kind of cooperation. It's very impressive. The application has been submitted to HUD. When we asked about it the last time, we were under the impression we were going to apply for $2.5 million. It's $1.5 million, and the reason is that we would have been in competition with 48 states, and now that we applied for $1.5 million, we're only in competition with a handful of other counties, actually, that are doing it. So it's very likely that we will receive the $1.5 million HUD grant, assuming nothing changes in HUD. Which we have no control over and no knowledge of. And then if we do get that, then that will make it much more likely that our next 3-year grant will be $2.5 million. We'll be more likely to be approved for the second grant if we get the first one. And also, there's no gaming update because nothing has changed. The Gaming Authority has not met. Their tentative next meeting is April 24th, and it's very likely they will not meet then if there has been no change at the legislative level. And finally, I just wanted to mention, and this isn't on your sheets, but Braden Airport returned their grant agreement, and we have a couple elements of that need to be completed. So that grant agreement is still in process, and so those funds have not been dispersed, and they won't be until we receive the other information that has to go along with the agreement. Then the agreement has to get signed internally and processed. So that we're gonna keep working with them directly. That is all I have.
I have a couple questions.
It's been a very busy month.
I have a couple
Yes,
questions
sir.
for you. With the hotel tax, the 417, you're going to go out with the request. And
Yes.
I really appreciate that. Thank God it's being done. 2 years. It's been.
And
2
we're
years
taking
of-
an ad out in 2 newspapers
Great.
to let people. We're not just relying on press releases because sometimes, no offense, Tom, sometimes press releases don't get put in.
Right.
So we're paying for ad space and we're putting it out there for all of our grants.
Okay, and there were some people that have had the grant many times and didn't get contacted. Is there a list of people
Yes.
or those that
We have not only an
traditionally are on
email
there?
list, but we have a mailing list as well.
Maybe a follow-up, because I know somebody went into
Yes.
spam, they didn't have it, and that kind of
Right.
stuff. Now, how much do we anticipate the hotel tax to generate this year? Has it been a good year? Has it been a bad year? I haven't heard anything about how much money we're making.
It's been a good year, but I don't have an actual figure for that. The last time around, we allocated for about $433,000, but I don't have. Do we have an updated number on that, Mark? No, we haven't received a new number from fiscal on that. We get that from them.
But we seem to be running the same.
Probably there or better.
How much did we leave in that? How much did we leave in that last year?
Sir?
How much did we leave? Did we spend it all?
No, there wasn't much at all. Yeah.
So then we got 20 grand back. So
Yeah.
that's
right.
that's,
That'll go
that's
back
all
into future
fine and
grants.
good.
Yeah. So we'll have that for the next round.
The other question I had is the 2005 for the infrastructure. You said redesign, development, and what activity to further the county? What was that little blurb
marketing
you
and
added?
capital improvements?
Marketing.
And capital improvements, and the mechanism, because we don't have any other mechanisms like this, will allow us to make multi-year grants. Because
Right.
the numbers coming in are substantial enough that if we do this, then we can look at 2- and 3-year projects, and we'll be able to fund them at a variety of levels.
Well, I know how it worked because we did it the last time, but I know we had 2 of them last time that we did.
Right, but
Are you
those were
anticipating
10-year
doing
grants. We're
more?
looking at 3-year grants.
Well,
now.
to make it quick, because
Yeah.
I mean, we have a year of money that's building up that hasn't been used
Yes.
for anything right off the bat.
Right, that'll be the first launch.
Okay.
That'll come right out of that. And that's where we'd be able to launch into 3-year grants, and we'll be able to do things by invoice without having to wait to see what comes in.
Right, and which is good.
Yes.
Unlike the gaming
Absolutely.
authority who awards the money before
It's
they
always
even get
better
it.
than not guessing.
The other question I had is, your criteria. I know you've rewritten the entire deal, but do we model it after what like ArtsQuest did? Because they took that little bit of money we
Similar,
gave them and
yes.
turned it into 10
Yeah, we're
times
looking
more
for
than it
leveraging.
was.
We're going to include all of those benefits that we included in those grants, leveraging more hits on tourism, feet on the street, heads in the beds. It's got to meet the legislation, and it has to meet the intent of
Of the
hotel.
legislation.
So,
So
yeah.
how many do you think we'll start out with? 3 or 4? Or
Well, we won't know until we put the application out, but we can run anywhere between 25 or 50,000 up to 150,000 over 3 years, and still be able to manage it reasonably. If we
Right.
do 50,000 and we have 300,000 in the bank, that's a lot more people than if we're just doing 150,000. Then you only have 2.
What if
it
someone
depends
comes-
on what the applications are.
I mean, the aquarium's a pipe dream now because it's not even in the point where it can be done, but that would be a great project for 10 years, for a 10-year loan. If someone comes with something great that's happening, and you want to take it out like we did with ArtsQuest and the other one for 10 years, do you have that ability still too, or you want to look to
Well, we would
smaller
have that
grants?
ability, but we would have to come to you and ask.
Well, I know you have to
That
come
would-
out and
yeah.
ask for anyone you
Right.
give out, but...
Yes, absolutely. We
I
have
mean-
flexibility, but it would have to be a spectacular project.
Yeah, because I don't know what's out there, and I haven't heard anything that's great except for the aquarium that I already volunteered to swim in. But it doesn't seem like it's going to happen this year. But it'd be
Yeah,
great.
we do have flexibility, but our plan is to work with 3-year grants because that's a very manageable amount of time. It's good for monitoring. We can see the progress. We can make sure the funds are going in the right place. A lot better than over a 10-year plan, unless it's ArtsQuest, in which case,
Yeah, if it's a great
Yeah,
project.
that's one of the-
Because I know there's a lot of acreage down there, but I don't know what's going on with the new casino with whoever's buying it. Those who cannot be
Or
named. yet.
Banana Factory, what's happening
Well, the
there?
Banana
I mean,
Factory has a
that's-
huge project. I know that one, but I don't know where it's at. For
I don't
him,
know either.
For him.
Okay.
Just want to understand, and because I think I got a little confused on that. Next month, I'm looking for you to come in with the processes and procedures for the 2005
Yes.
hotel. And
Yes.
I'm not expecting to see any people that you're recommending.
No.
I'm just
No,
looking
no,
to see
this
the
is just the
mechanics.
program, yeah.
of how- So I
Mechanics.
think that's
You're
where those
absolutely correct,
questions will be answered.
I'm sorry, I was asking questions ahead. He's getting to the point we're going to approve the new way we're going to
That's
build
what
them
we're
out.
gonna-
Yes, you're right.
So that's what we're going to do next week.
I was getting a
month.
little further ahead because I'm looking at all these projects that can be done that I wish were started already.
All right.
Okay,
Madam
perfect.
Chair, in response to a request by individual council members, I have Lynn Erickson of the Da Vinci Center here to answer some questions. May I bring her up?
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to entertain any questions you might address.
Well, I'll start.
Sure.
I have to tell you, I was disappointed when I heard on a radio and then read in the paper about the Ripley's aquarium going up in the Poconos. And it seems like it's private funds. It's $250 million. Your organization knew about it for a year. I think you did a lot of presentations to us. We were never told about it. Could you walk me through that?
Sure. I actually first heard an early idea about the aquarium from a county official, a Northampton County official, and followed up at that time with Senator Scavello and met with him to learn a little bit more. And he said that was something that was being explored. And so then I asked the county official to continue to monitor in whatever way possible. And then we've been trying to monitor as well if there were any developments. And we have heard nothing. We heard nothing at all or couldn't find anything until, like you, over the last month or so, information came out that Ripley's was looking to move forward. So that's something that we are continuing to monitor. We didn't mention it at the time of our application because, quite honestly, we didn't really know any firm information or any progress, and we didn't feel it was our prerogative to speak about that project.
So when did you first know about it? Like a year ago? That's what the paper's saying.
Yeah, a little more than a year ago.
Go ahead.
Done.
Yeah.
Hi, Lynn.
Almost.
How are you? Thank you for
Oh,
coming.
great, thanks.
My question is not that it was bad enough that we didn't hear about it firsthand in all the other discussions, but my question is, how did you find out about it, and who talked to you about it?
Well, and
Besides
initially,
Mario.
it was, Diane Donaher told me about it initially. And we were meeting as part of, we were early in this project and doing some of our planning for this project. And she said, she had heard through, I'm assuming, Senator Scavello, that there were early discussions and that he had made a trip to Canada to explore the potential. And so then at that time, I went to meet with Senator Scavello to learn a little bit more. And he showed me some pictures and said, they were exploring the potential. And I said, great, keep me posted. And then I continued to touch base at that time. This is obviously before Tim was here, with Diane to see if she knew any more. And then, of course, I'm regularly scouring. I know a lot of, my husband's the president of Northampton Community College. There's a Monroe campus. I know a fair amount of people up in the Monroe area. So I was trying to keep my ear to the ground to see if we would learn anything else. And quite honestly, we haven't heard anything. So I didn't even know that it was going forward officially.
If I may again, okay? Has anyone that you know of from Ripley's confirmed that this is going forward?
No, there's been no confirmation.
Yeah, that
And
was
in
my
the
question.
newspaper you saw, there was no
Well,
confirmation.
I've read the newspapers, and I've read the comments from Senator Scavello and also Senator Boscola. What I'm not seeing, and what I keep reading, is that when contacted, Ripley's did not speak about it, and according to what was told by, this is all Mario Scavello announcing things, but I haven't seen any confirmation from Ripley's. Now, that doesn't mean it's not there, but apparently you heard it from hearsay also, rather than a source.
Correct.
I believe in getting it from a factual source, like calling Ripley's up direct and saying, yes or no, are you going to come here and do something, because we have something in the
Correct.
making that could be in jeopody if you decide to move
Correct.
forward.
Well, and I
No.
want to comment to your in jeopardy. So
I would
a couple of
approach
different
it differently.
things.
I'd approach it that our aquarium will put yours out of business. You sure you don't want to build it down here?
Well, it's a nice positive attack
I mean,
on
if
it.
Diane was on it and knew about it, you would think she would have offered a
That's-
space down here. That's who she was working for.
My whole, actually, Hayden and I had met with, and I've met with Lynn a number of times, and also with the mayor, and this is, again, with Dawn. This is the first time we've heard. Matter of fact, Hayden told me about the news articles. I hadn't even seen them. I went right to the news articles. I saw the editorials that were written, and nowhere in there, and I'm not saying that the papers don't have it, but I couldn't confirm
It's not.
anything from Ripley's. So I'm asking you, since you did know about it for a year or at least you said you knew about it. Who confirmed it that this is going to happen?
My direct conversations have been with Senator Scavello.
And so Mario Scavello is the source.
Yes.
Do you have any reason
Yes.
to believe that Senator Scavello?
I think there's absolutely discussions about an aquarium, and how far along they are, I don't know. But I think I would be surprised. I don't think he has reason to suddenly come forward with an aquarium idea unless there's serious or some kind of discussions about an aquarium.
I mean, it's just a bad place for it in the Poconos. I mean, they have that big amphitheater where they had that we spent hundreds of millions of dollars for that darn amphitheater, and they had concerts. It's closed. You know, it's not easy to get around up there.
Well,
Here, it's such an easy place. They can look at the ballparks. They can look at what we draw for all the entertainment
I
here.
would
and
agree
see
with
it's
you,
better.
Mr. Kraft, but here's the problem. They're tying it in. What's the
Kalahari.
Kalahari, supposedly. And this, again, this is hearsay. This is not, we're not, and I am so tired of lies and speculation, you have no idea, okay? But the fact I'm hearing that it's supposed to be tied in with Kalahari's, and supposedly we have this, and maybe, I would like to know definitively from someone on paper so that we can continue our discussions about, I mean, my idea is to continue on the Da Vinci Center ourselves, but certainly Ripley's has enough funding, $200 million cash, private funded, to do it if they want.
We just finished Kalahari. We just painted the whole thing. They just built the whole thing.
Yeah.
Haven't heard a thing about this aquarium. No contractors are in contact.
To my
Nobody's
point.
asked to build it. It's a very specialty thing with the glass and all, as she knows, because she's been looking to it for a long time.
Well-
It's just not something you know, I got $200 million, build me an aquarium.
And I know you'll be sadly, upset if you don't get a chance to jump in the aquarium first, because you've already.
Yeah, I want to
you
clean the
wanna
glass.
do that.
Yeah,
know
that's
you
what I
do.
want to do, but I
But-
want to do it here. I don't want to drive up to Utopia and do it.
Well, and I think that for us, the aquarium has also gotten all the press. We're proposing a major educational asset, a science complex,
Yeah.
Da Vinci Science City, that has multiple components. I brought little illustrations that I can pass out to you again to remind you. But we have the aquarium, the science center,
Movie
the
theater.
creativity studio, and the immersive theater.
And a convention center.
And a convention center, sure, go for it. We want to have a
Sal will
major
build you a
event
convention
center.
center.
So
That's
there are
the way
multiple
to
components.
Well, there is, the hotel is part
Yes,
of it. Right?
and I think that also we're talking about the marketing study, which the hotel tax is funding. A very important role that marketing study needs to play is to assess if we learn more and it becomes definitive that that project is moving forward. We have to evaluate. What we're proposing in our project, what the potential attendance is, what they're proposing, how do they complement one another, or should we be emphasizing another aspect of our project, and is that going to create an incredible draw as we develop the factory floor experience, as we develop the health and medicine area, as we have robots larger than my size walking out to interact with you. So we have to develop the project. We're in a feasibility planning period. We have almost another year to explore this. And part of the work that we're doing is putting together the concepts for the experience, but also the marketing study to look at what kinds of places do consumers visit. And if they're in a particular location like northern New Jersey or up into the New York area, and they have some expendable funds, and they're looking at those expendable funds, and they have a family, what kinds of places do they visit? What kinds of dollars do they pay for those places? We put out the elements of our project. Would they come to the proposed project we're proposing? So we have to do all that homework with this marketing study. If they're going forward with that aquarium, how does our aquarium relate to that? We're proposing an educational experience of a not-for-profit aquarium. They're quite a bit different than commercial ventures. I was very struck by this recently. I hadn't been to the Baltimore National Aquarium in a very long time, and the feel of that aquarium is dramatically different. The educational focus of that aquarium is also dramatically different. So we've got different venues we're talking about. We also have, you might say, as Mr. Kraft is suggesting, again, this is something we have to evaluate carefully from a marketing perspective, but he's suggesting that they might have an aquarium, we might have an aquarium. There's certainly casinos in both locations. There's certainly water parks in both, or major amusement parks in both locations. we have Dorney Park here, right? And they have the various water parks there. But this is not something we take lightly at all. We want to put together an incredible educational resource for the Lehigh Valley. But we want the components to really make sense for the Lehigh Valley, and we want the economics to work and to really work for the Lehigh Valley. So we're going to move forward carefully, continue to monitor what's happening there, and we have over a year. The plan's probably going to change over time as we look at what funding comes forward, and as we get the feedback from the marketing study, and as we continue to engage members of the community. We want to take that all into consideration. We want this to be the best community resource possible.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so this is how I look at things. I look at a lot of different disciplines, but I look at stakeholder management and risk management. So you consider Northampton County an important stakeholder in this?
Absolutely.
Do you have a stakeholder relationship management plan? In other words, do you understand what you have to do not to annoy members of county council?
We do not want to annoy members of county council. We want to go forward. This is not the Da Vinci Science Center's project. This needs to be Easton, Northampton County, and quite honestly, the Lehigh Valley's project.
Right.
And if it doesn't work and make sense for all those parties, we're not doing it. I'm telling you, we're not doing it.
So we're a stakeholder, and at least one of you, let's say you have 9 stakeholders, you got one annoyed, maybe more. Then the other part is the risk management plan. Even if you knew a year ago there was some possibility of the Kalahari going up, the aquarium going up next to Kalahari, my thought would be, how I would have done it is I would have taken that information and I would have done a risk analysis on it. I would have said, what's the probability of this happening, and what is the impact, and how can that mitigate it? And I would have shared that with the stakeholders. When we had so many meetings on this, and we gave $50,000, and then we weren't told that. And then we came back for another $50,000, and we weren't told that. Frankly, I find that disingenuous. I think you should have told us that. I think you had some percentage of an idea. Unless if the percentage was 0, then it would be okay. But you had to have some percentage of an idea that this was going to transpire. And you had to have an idea of how that was going to affect your risk. And I heard people say, well, if it comes, we'll do this and we'll do that. But there was a very definitive presentation given at the hotel in Easton, which had a pretty good outline of what was going to happen. I think at some point in that presentation you should have mentioned that there could have been the possibility that there's some risk, however slight, that would affect this project. And that's probably what I'm upset about, is the stakeholder management and the risk management, and that you didn't share that risk with the stakeholders.
I guess I would respond in 2 ways. First, again, given the lack of really available information, I didn't feel that we were at liberty, nor did we have the responsibility to share another project that we weren't even sure that was going forward at all. Second, I think all that risk analysis you're mentioning is exactly what we need to be doing now and reporting back to you on a regular basis. We're in a feasibility period. We haven't said we can go ahead. We want to do a major science educational asset for the Lehigh Valley and put together the components, as I've said, that will be of maximum benefit to our community. And we've got to really assess all of those and look at the cost and look at the risks and the competition, not just the competition from aquariums. Of course, we're looking at how can our science center be distinctive from Liberty Science Center, which is within a 50-mile radius, or close, some of the same audience to a 50-mile radius. The Franklin
Institute.
So we have to look at all of those competing venues and look at how we can have a distinctive resource that will serve our region, but will also attract those visitors that are in the middle of New Jersey and have the choice of what they might be doing on any given Saturday. So,
Can I ask one question? Both Mario and Lisa said that they don't believe the market has a need for 2 aquariums. So it's almost mutually exclusive. If they build that, we probably wouldn't have an aquarium here. Do you agree with that?
I have not studied the mile radius. I do know that in North Carolina, for example, there are aquariums as close together as you're suggesting. So there are other places where that does occur. Again, that's part of the marketing study. I think that we have to fully assess. And we have to look at what they're proposing exactly and what our package is and all the components of our package and what that means for the draw.
And what does Mario and Lisa, what marketing studies, what background do they have? Where they're just saying they don't think they would work together. You can't just say something isn't going to work. You have to do your marketing, your feasibility. You have to know what they're doing and what does our aquarium focus on educationally, et cetera, that aquarium is strictly, quote, entertainment. It can be different things, and I don't think Mario and Lisa can say that they can't work together. I mean, they're just shooting from the hip. They're just saying something.
Well, you know, words...
They don't have any basis.
Words
they don't
matter.
have any study.
Words matter. And both of them said they didn't believe there were room for 2 aquariums. That's quoted, okay? But let's go back to your first
Why
statement.
isn't there room for 2?
You have to ask them.
No, but we have to have a
Well,
study
let
to
me
know
go back,
what there's...
Let me go back to the first question that came up on your answer about you didn't have enough information, okay? Because I'm all for a project like this for the city. I think it's a great idea, but I think implementation is 100% of the project, okay? It's how you roll it out. And you said you didn't think you had enough information, yet in a quote you said, Lynn Erickson, director of the Da Vinci Center in Allentown, and Mayor Sal Pantel confirmed they are aware of Ripley's plans, but said they were not put off by them. Okay? That was your decision to say that you weren't put off by them.
Correct.
Okay? But what information...
We knew that a year ago I had this meeting with Senator Scavello, and he said they were talking about the potential for an aquarium.
But
with
no
Ripley's.
one
That's all
bothered
the
to
information I
say,
know.
no one went beyond that. It wasn't, no one defined it beyond that.
Correct.
It was just all discussion.
What was all
Okay,
this?
could we...
All right, well,
I have more questions.
I just
Who
have
wants to go
one thing
next?
to add. I mean, if you could, you want me
No,
to?
go ahead. And
It's, what I'm being told is it's being proposed for the middle of the Steamtown Mall, okay? Which is, yeah, no,
Not even close.
from people who are going to be building it. And it's 77 miles away from here, and I'm just being
That's a
told it's a
different
pipe
aquarium,
dream.
actually.
That's different.
There's
It's a totally
another
different
Now
aquarium?
we have
aquarium
3.
going in Scranton that we had not heard of. That's
Well, there's
quite a bit
another
different.
one at Steamtown Mall, too.
That's a reptile and I forget what they're calling it. Something reptile and aquarium. So it's
Amphibious.
half kind of crocodiles and
Yeah.
we're
Amphibian
not getting into
reptiles.
crocodiles and that
This
kind
is
of
gonna
thing.
be at
It's
the-
much smaller and it's
I know,
quite
Kalahari,
further
you're
away.
talking about.
At the exit of Kalahari.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
different than the Kalahari project because we just heard about that one last week too, and I just think that their value proposition is so different. It's dramatically different, and it's
Right.
much smaller. And 70 miles away is a long way.
Mr. Geisinger.
Well, I find that it would be absolutely unreasonable to ask you to have notified us. I'm in disagreement with my colleagues. I don't think you can notify us of a project that may or may not exist and that may or may not be moving forward. One of the things that, I'll go back to the airport authority. I've sat on that board long enough to realize that at one point they were going to expand the airport. And they had that in a master plan. And they were going to do certain things. That precipitated a $26 million lawsuit, and it never happened, okay? I'm involved in the development of certain buildings within my church organization. I'm aware of land we purchased 20 years ago. That building's still not built, and it won't be, and it may not be, unless certain things change within demographics. I think that it is wise for you as a marketing expert, as somebody who runs an advertising firm, I think it's wise for you to continue to look at the marketing realities
Absolutely.
and the demographic realities of being located in the middle of the megalopolis, having 50 million people within a 3-4 hour drive, and seeing what that would do based on competition. That's the logical step. For now, knowing that there is another project that may be progressing, that may be able to create a competitive environment or not, depending on how you are placed, what niche you are in, how does that affect it. This project that appears to be possibly moving forward in Monroe County is recreational. It's part of a recreational idea, strictly. Your project, as you mentioned, is an educational project. They form two different demographic-based draws for what you're trying to accomplish. Are they competing for similar dollars? Possibly. Disposable income's disposable income. But the truth is they are two different kind of operations. Just like a Chevrolet dealer and a Ford dealer compete more so directly, but a Chevrolet dealer and an Alfa Romeo dealer do not. So I think those are things that continue to support the movement forward. Having said that, I do agree with the respect that that reality does need to be taken into consideration,
Absolutely.
and I'm sure you will do that moving forward.
And if I might just add, our board, we are not going to go forward with something that's not going to be economically viable and be of value add. And to echo your comments that you made that were said very, very well, and I should tape them. The reason you go to Kalahari is to go to a resort for the weekend or a few days, and you pick that resort because of the amenities and the water park and all kinds of cool stuff they have. The reason you would choose to come to Crayola and or Da Vinci Science City are not because you're going to a resort for the weekend. You're deciding, let's go over there for the day. Gee, there's a lot here. Maybe we'll stay. We'll eat some food. But it's just a different value proposition.
Right. Thank
It's
you.
not a vacation weekend.
And may
Thank
I
you,
just
Madam
say,
Chair.
you have a great history. You've taken the Discovery Center in Southside Bethlehem. Then it became the Da Vinci Science Center. You had a program. Your board has moved things along to bigger and better and more experiences for people, for students especially. So you have a great
Thank
background
you.
in
And we will
history.
keep you fully informed, absolutely. And we will do the right thing for the county and for the region that's going to make sense for our kids and be economically viable. It's got to be, or we
And I
won't
think
go
you-
forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so
thank you.
much.
Okay,
Good
thanks.
job.
Thanks.
Thanks. Madam Chair, that's all I have.
Okay. Anybody have anything for the good of the order? Mr. Kusick?
Just one brief question. Last meeting, we did talk about some of the ideas that have been floated regarding the gaming
Yes.
legislation and the fact that the legislature is going to remove, or the likelihood that the legislature is going to move what we have done through our authority to the Commonwealth Financing Authority for the awarding of gaming grants. I guess my question is, if in fact that does happen, and I've had some conversations that it is very likely to happen that way, are you prepared to work with the municipalities in order to facilitate that potential change in the legislation?
Indeed, we are, sir. We're very cognizant of the possibilities that could happen, and that's one of them. And so we recognize that, A, we have existing agreements and operations that are going on that have already been funded. We have monitoring programs and reports, interim and finished reports that have to come through, and that will take up another year or two. But we're very aware that if the funding source changes, and some speculation has been that it might come down through the representatives themselves, we would have to alter our mechanism for that. And because we have been building over the last year better relations with all the municipalities, I feel we have better relations than we had a year ago, that we think we're in a position to pivot where necessary and implement new methodologies and mechanisms to get that money dispersed in an appropriate way, insofar as we may be still involved in it. Depending on how the legislatures determine, if they decide they want to give it out, then there's not too much we can do. We can help with monitoring and agreements, but we can't tell them what to do. But if it comes through us, we have our mechanisms in place. We have our methodologies. As I said, we have a policies and procedures manual that's department-wide that we're putting together, and that includes standardization of all of those kinds of activities. So we would be able to pivot very quickly, and we do have good relationships with all 38 municipalities. So I think it would be not that difficult an achievement to acquire.
Who's monitoring the plan that the legislators are coming up with? That would be a very much interest to me. It sounds almost like the old walking around money.
Well, we keep our ear to the ground. And
I'll
we've
say
heard
it
a
like
number
it
of
is.
different possibilities, including the one you just mentioned, sir, and we don't know what they're going to do. But we're ready for it. We've had a number of conversations. We're bringing up in staff meetings. We're looking at our mechanisms to determine how quickly we'd be able to make changes. And I feel very confident especially with Karen's structure and ability to keep records tight and know what's where. I think we'd be able to react very quickly and effectively.
Could you keep us informed too on the mechanism
Absolutely.
the legislature plans to use?
Yes,
I know
anytime we
you'll
hear
do a
something,
good
we'll
job,
forward
but
it
I
up
want to
and-
make sure it's
and
coming
make sure
down
that-
the right way.
Yeah, we went up and talked to Mario, and that's how I got some knowledge of it. Actually, at this point, I got into Mario. We sort of talked to Mario about
Yeah, but
so I think it's going to go to the CFA.
Right. So we'll be ready, and we'll keep you informed. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Yes, hello, how are you? Yes, yes. Good, how are you? 1 second. So